Welcome, hey, hello, good evening. It is the evening here in the UK. I don't know where you are in the world. It could be any time of day, but friends, family, Team Superdad members all around the world, it's great to have you here. We are live on a Team Superdad podcast, and that means you're probably watching. Yes, you can watch live on YouTube, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, where else? We're even on Twitch now. How about that? We're down with the kids. We're on Twitch, and if you are listening on the podcast, then it's absolutely brilliant to have you here. We have got an awesome guest on tonight from the States. Rob Schulz is a leading financial planner, an advisor, an author, a seriously well-respected guy from the States, which he'll tell us all about when we bring him on. But tonight we're going to talk about how to manage your money. That sounds a bit boring, doesn't it? Really, but literally. How to be rich and not worry about money. That's a much nicer title. So stick with us. We're going to be talking about that for the next hour with Rob Schulz on the Team Superdad podcast.
Welcome to Team Superdad. Real dads creating their best lives ever. More time, more money, more fun. You are not alone. You're on Team Superdad.
Boom, Rob.
Hey, Johnny.
Good to see you. How you doing?
Doing really good. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Kudos to your team as well, as they did a great job in managing that for you. So it's always nice to see a guy who's got his team kind of looking out for him. We had a few technical issues. I thought you were going to be on this morning, and I was like, hang on a minute, 10:30.
Yeah.
In the middle of the night.
No, we had. Yeah, we're in different time zones. There's no doubt. And
yeah.
Sometimes Google or whatever program you're using doesn't know how to handle all that stuff.
Yeah. Well, thankfully we got it sorted. And it's, as I said in the introduction, it's great to have you on tonight. One of the 5 elements of the Team Superdad F5 is finances, and such a vital part of everyday life, let alone our future and everything. And I know from my history, I mean, sitting here today, it's one of the wonderful things about doing a podcast and having all the coaches that I've got inside the Team Superdad community and the Hero program is that I get to learn as well. I've got all these dads in our community. I'm some kind of leader for them, but I'm on the same journey. So, it's brilliant for me to be able to have this conversation with you tonight and hear from your experience. How long have we been talking? Like 20? As it said in your profile, is it 25 years experience in financial planning?
Yeah. I've been doing it for a good long while. And it's been fun. And my kids, I have 4 kids that we raised, and they're all. I guess we're empty nesters now. Because the youngest is a freshman in college. So the nest is empty, but so are my pockets because I'm still paying for college and things like that and auto insurance and whatever. So it's, a little anticlimactic to a certain extent, but yeah, that's where we are these days.
And do they like coming home? Is it what kids have you got? How's it break down?
Well, I have, I like to call it 2 sets with the same wife because we've got two older and 2 younger. I've been married for over 30 years, and we've got the 2 older that are 29 and 25, both girls. And the 25-year-old is pregnant, so we're going to have our first grandbaby.
Granddad
before too long. And then I have a boy who's 20 and a girl who's 19.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah, I've got a boy and a girl, so I love having both. I've got a brother myself. I do have an older sister as well, but I remember it hadn't really dawned on me what having a daughter was going to be like, and I pulled up at the lights one night, and it suddenly hit me that I was going to walk her down the aisle one day.
Oh,
and the next thing I know, I'm sat there crying.
And I try not to be an overly emotional person. I try not to be. And I cried so hard coming down the aisle that first time. Oh my goodness. Oh, that was the hardest thing. I think that's the hardest thing I've ever done.
Wow.
and she married a great guy, and I was happy for him and all that. But still, I don't know why, but that was really one of the most emotional moments in my life.
Yeah. Well, I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it. You're giving, I mean, like you're giving your daughter away.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Well,
these words don't have much meaning or substance until they're actually experiencing it. Then you suddenly go, oh my gosh, now I know what they actually meant when they said giving your daughter away.
No, I think that's part of it. I think it snuck up on me a little bit, so I wasn't able to handle it very well.
Yeah. Well, that's a perfect intro into the subject, because I think for most people, the money subject sneaks up on them a little bit. And listen, I love so much about your story and your journey, but people like to get to know each other on a podcast. So we'll dig into just a tiny bit of that history. But I know from your career journey, it started in the Navy, right? How did you end up being a financial planner in the Navy? Or what's that about?
I don't know. How do any of us end up where we are, right? I mean, it's just
you were going to go and be a sailor, right? You'll fight, shoot guns or do whatever.
Yeah, all that stuff. Well, I don't know. I went to they paid for my school, first of all.
So okay.
At the university,
that's an American thing, right? What happened? That's like the Army or one of the forces pays for you to go to college. Is that how that works?
It's really different. So we have academies too.
Right.
So there's a naval academy that you can go to, and that's one way that officers are trained. Another way is through what's called ROTC, and that's where you can go to a number of schools, like the University of Texas, is where I went, and they pay for your college. And while you're in college, you do some training, but it's so much better because, I wore a uniform like once a week, and the rest of the time I was just a college kid, and then when you get out, you earn you're given a commission in the Navy, and, you go do your thing. And then there's a commitment after that, generally 4 years. And that's what I did. I ended up doing my 4 years. But while I was at the University of Texas, I studied accounting, which is kind of weird because, most naval officers are engineers, but I was an accountant.
So you finish uni, and then you owe them 4 years to pay it back. And then so what kind of year is this? Was when, I don't know, well, your kid's 29. Was that like, blimey, did you catch the flipping tail end of Iraq and that sort of stuff? Or what?
Yeah, I caught the tail end of all that stuff, like 90 to 94. I wasn't over there or anything, but right. We also did a lot of the drug interdiction ops in the Caribbean, and a couple of little things that would pop up from time to time.
Oh, like pirates and stuff.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, I used to joke with my kids. I had a sword. You get a sword, and what'd you do with the sword? And I was like, well, I fought pirates. And they're like, what are you talking about? I kept that going. I don't know. I think my 29-year-old, I think she still thinks that we fought pirates in the Caribbean.
You kept it going longer than Santa. That's absolutely awesome.
Yes, I did. No doubt.
Yeah, totally. So you're on a boat, and just like in everyday life, you've got sailors who have got wives back at shore. They've got young families, and you're helping them basically unravel their financial dramas. Basically, is that right? Yeah,
and so I was uniquely suited to that because of the fact that I had some training, and if you read my book, you'll see I have some training too, because my dad did a really good job of teaching me some things.
Yeah,
and
let's just cut in there. That's perfect that you should mention that, and I do apologize. One of the reasons how we got to be connected was around your book launch, and the book is called. I kept getting this wrong because I was trying to search for it. Thinking thoughts about
lots of T's. Thoughts on things financial. TOTF. Thoughts on things financial. Yeah.
And once you get it, it's got a nice ring to it. But until you get it, thoughts on things financial. So Rob's book, Thoughts on Things Financial, is on Amazon. You can go and get it there. I know because I've seen it there. Thoughts on Things Financial, and it's a practical guide, a really practical guide for people to get an understanding of their financial planning and tracking their finances into the future. But we'll definitely hear more about that. But the essence of this book is your whole experience from this story that we're talking about now in the Navy, right through to your very successful Schulz Wealth company and all the people you've worked in there. So this is really your whole career put into a book so that people can practically manage and grow their finances. Is that correct?
I'd say so. When I wrote it, I decided I wanted it to be comprehensive. And my, publisher people were like, well, that's crazy. That's too much information. I was like, no, I get the same questions over and over and over again, from people. I see the same mistakes. I see the same success stories from the same habits. I was like, man, I want to write all this stuff. I want to put all this stuff down. And I think the book is unique from that standpoint because I've actually worked with all these people, hundreds of people, and helped them put their kids through college and retire and do all these things. And a lot of people that write financial books don't have that experience. And so that's what I tried to do. I tried to put those stories in there to help solidify, these just basic things that you need to know. It doesn't have to be complicated. It's not. It's not complicated, but there are some basic tenets that are super important if you want to be financially successful, I believe.
Yeah, well, listen, for any people listening, right? This is going to be a relatively practical podcast session tonight with Team SuperDad, because I want to make it as much value for the Team SuperDad members as possible. And if you're listening to this and wondering what that is, come on over to teamsuperdad.com/network, and you just, usual stuff, give your name and your email address, and you will be put into our group, all the previous podcasts and the training that we've got in there, and there's live sessions and there's the community stuff. And so yeah, teamsuperdad.com/network, and you can come and be part of that. But the book is written in very practical, everyday language. It's not a heavy finance book. It's a read. Well, obviously someone's got to have an interest in managing their finances, but it's very accessible. I've read the different chapters that I was given, and it's very accessible. And I guess, do you know what? Even as I'm saying it's a relief.
Oh, really? Yeah. Okay.
When you read the way that you've approached some of the subjects, it's like, oh gosh, okay, right. Well, that's not too hard. Yeah, I could do that. Okay, yeah. So let's look at it from a journey perspective, right? People, couples. Let's look at it as a family situation. People get together. It's unlikely that either of them have got their finances handled that well. There's very few people in this world that actually got a good handle on their finances. Would you agree with that? It's kind of uncommon that people have got a handle on their finances. It
is uncommon, and there are varying degrees of financial health with people. And one of the important things here, okay, that I see over and over and over again is people think that you don't know about anybody else's finances, so you assume that yours are just awful. Okay, a lot of people do that, and there's this shame that kind of happens. They're kind of ashamed of where they are, and they're upset about maybe some of the poor decisions that they made. And man, if you're going to get better at this stuff, the first thing you have to do is you got to get rid of that. And otherwise, that's going to trip you up, because you're not going to go find help, because you're not going to want to be able to kind of admit maybe some of the mistakes that you've made. And that's the first thing I want to say, is that everybody struggles through this stuff. And it's a constant journey, and we're all going to make mistakes. I've made mistakes. Everybody's made mistakes, and we're going to be okay. The key to it is to just keep marching forward and to be honest about where you are with, with your spouse, absolutely, with your kids. I think one of the worst things that we can do is try to hide, what our real situation is from our kids.
Yeah.
Because they can learn from that. They can learn from our mistakes, just like they can learn from the good things that we do. And that can lead to some dysfunction, I think, if you're trying to pretend like you're something you're not. Both ways, by the way. I see very, very wealthy people that want to pretend like they're not, and that doesn't provide the right message either, because these kids, they're going to be very wealthy sometime too, and they need to learn how to handle that, and they're not going to learn how to do it if you're hiding that from them. I hope some of that makes sense. Honesty is like super important with all this financial stuff, with each other, with your financial planner, everybody.
Yeah, and particularly, do you know why that message is really important right now is because the world is a bit crazy, and people, for various reasons, could be really struggling with money. That has an impact on relationships. Relationships break down too often because of money. You've got a couple who are really in love, and then money troubles come along and just it wipes out trust. It wipes out communication. It wipes out intimacy. And all because of what? Because you just said it, because it didn't communicate about it. They didn't go and get the right help. And sadly, the suicide rates are just far too high globally, particularly among men. So yeah, whatever your financial situation is, there is no shame in going and getting advice. There is no shame in going and having a conversation with someone who's qualified to look at your finances and help you through this. So wherever you're at, whoever's watching or listening to this, please, at the start of this conversation, take on being open and honest with people in your life and seeking out the right advice.
Yeah, because the solution, there are solutions, and that's the thing. You mentioned suicide. That's usually when somebody just can't see, a solution. Well, solutions come around when you want to look at what the issues are. And that's pretty much all that financial planning is we just bring a couple into the room, and, we start talking. First of all, we look at what their true situation is right now. We look at what they want it to be, what are some of the goals and so forth and so on. And we don't have all the answers right then, but what's really cool is what happens is our brains start working towards those solutions. That's how our brains work.
Yeah.
And, you expose all this, and you're honest about it, and you talk about it, and then you can start creating these solutions. And, most of the time I'm just kind of kicking back and they're figuring this stuff out. We come back 6 months later, and they've made incredible progress because they're communicating now, and they know what the issues are, and they're finding creative ways to solve it. It's amazing.
Yeah. Well, we've talked about that on the podcast before, the reticular activating system. And when you start to focus on a problem from the perspective of a solution, then we get creative, ideas spark. You start to notice things around you in a different way. You have different conversations. Two people that perhaps were arguing and frustrated with each other now start to share ideas and laugh and joke about some that might be silly, some that might be realistic, and you put a silly idea and a great idea and a great idea together, and you come up with an even better idea.
Yeah.
And quickly you can take the significance out of a financial struggle and turn it into a financial goal. Is it are people realistic about their financial ambitions? Or do too often people think, oh, well, there's no way I could save that much money. And so before they've even started, everything gets shut down?
That's a good question. I think most people, if they've never done any financial planning, they don't know. They have no idea. They have no idea whether what they want to do is feasible or not. They just don't know. And that's a big point of the book, and of what I try to do is you got to know. You need to know, and the only way to know is to run the numbers and calculate it. You know, you can't just go through life and going, well, you know, I'm doing this. I hope it all works out. You know, that's not financial planning. Financial planning is backing into some numbers and then seeing whether your current situation is able to support that. And in most cases, you know, if you take all the goals that you ever want from a financial standpoint, you can't achieve them all. Okay, you can't achieve them all. And so you have to prioritize, just like everything else, and come up with those things that are most important to you based upon your values, not somebody else's values, not mine, but yours. And then you focus on those things that are most important. That's where you allocate your resources. And next thing you know, you're achieving those things. And maybe some things that were important to other people or that maybe you thought should be important but isn't important to you, those things maybe don't happen, but that's okay.
And so what are those segments? Are we talking house, holiday, kids' college, retirement? You know, is some of it, I guess some of it's life kind of stuff, and then other is more frivolous, throwaway things. But they've all got a place on the, if we imagine it's on a wheel, right? They've all got a slot on the wheel, correct?
Yeah, I would say so. And everybody's going to have different values or things that are important to them, and they do. They go. I mean, you think of a car.
What would be the list? What if someone was making a list now? What would those kind of categories be? That
I think that's the thing. Is sometimes we don't know because we haven't thought about it, and then what happens is this thing that I wrote about. It's called short-term bias, because our brains haven't evolved as fast as modern technology has evolved. Okay, and so what happens is sometimes we give priority to those things that are closest, a transaction that's closest, over things that are actually much more important to us but are much further out. See, that is why you have to do financial planning, because your brain can't do that. You know, your brain's looking at, you know, we've got to buy a car for our son. Okay, he's going to be here in the States, 16, you get a car.
Yeah.
So we got to do that, and it's going to have to be safe, and you know, it needs to be new and all that kind of stuff. So you know, we're putting top dollar on that, and all of our priorities, all of our money resources are going to go to that. Well,
so that's the short-term bias. So we haven't
short-term bias going focusing all in. Yeah, focusing all in on that, but really, man, that's not as important as trying to make sure college is paid for. And then retirement can be so much more money that's needed later when you're not working. So, you know, what happens when you do financial planning is you're able to project out what those numbers are and make them real in the present, so that you can make a better decision about that car for your son, you know, based upon the other things that you know are later, further down, not so short term, but they're long term, but maybe they're more important. I would argue that they are, and that you need to not ignore them and just buy the most, you know, the best, greatest car you possibly can with everything you've got.
Yeah, and in one of the excerpts that I was shared of your book, it said about someone, it looks like a sensible idea to pay off your debts with a bunch of money that were previously in a retirement fund, but without a sensible financial expert helping you through that, it might have been the worst decision you've ever made. And equally, it could be the right decision, but unless you've got the skills to know that, you've got to use your money in a way that's going to serve all the goals that you've got coming down.
Right, and just like what you talk about so often about having balance around all these different things in your life. Well, your financial life is the same thing. It has to have some balance to it. And you know, if you are just completely debt free, okay, but you have absolutely no money saved, that's a disaster. Okay, that's an absolute disaster, because you're going to end up in debt again. I mean, no question, because you don't have any cash, and an emergency comes up, or you know, if you just even need to buy tires for your car or your truck, you know, you're you're done. You're going to use your MasterCard. You're back in debt again. And, that's not smart.
Well, and that's how this money subject can be a problem for people who are, in inverted commas, rich people or poor people, people with loads of money, people with not so much money. The person with loads of money can be just as cash poor as the person with hardly any money, right? This is about looking after your money so you've got some to spend, some's being saved, some's getting you through every day.
Yeah, and that's right. And that's why I don't really use the term as far as, somebody has lots of money and somebody, basically everybody, I use this term, I call it, there are net savers and then there are net spenders. Okay. There aren't like rich people and poor people. There are net savers and there are net spenders. And it doesn't matter how much money you make. If you spend more than you make, you're a net debtor. And over time, it may take a long time. It may take 20 years, but over time, you're going to sink yourself. Okay. Because over time, you are spending more than you make. And that's going to be a problem. And you're not going to achieve personal financial success. And then a net saver is just the opposite of that. They're always spending less than what they actually make. It's just that's what they do. They do it week in, out, month in, years and years. And over time, they can accumulate, they can achieve, and they have the resources they need to put together for their financial goals. And it all works out great. And neither one of them are really aware sometimes of who they are and why everything, like for the net saver, if you ask them, it's like, oh, I've just been really fortunate. I haven't had any of these terrible things happen. Well, yeah, they have, but they had the money to be able to take care of it. Yeah. The net spender is going, man, I've just really had some bad breaks. This happened over here or whatever that costs a lot of money, and I just wasn't able. Well, you weren't able to handle it because you didn't have the savings, you didn't have the resources to deal with it.
Yeah,
that's the difference.
And on a basic level, you find out that one of those people was spending $100 a month on Starbucks, and the other one wasn't. They just had different. Their attitude to spending on little things was slightly different, and they made their money. They managed their money better. I guess it boils down to managing their money better.
It does. It really boils down to habits and having good financial habits. And sometimes it comes down to kind of tricking yourself into those habits.
Okay, so tell us more about that, because these kind of habits, I would imagine, are at the root of lots of couples' relationship problems where finances are at play, because one could have good habits and the other could have bad habits, or they could just have habits that clash. So this is an important subject because financial pressure can ruin relationships, and it's heartbreaking when an otherwise happy couple who loved each other are now at loggerheads over something ultimately as insignificant as money, when it could just be managed properly. So, and I'm sure you see that a lot in your work, don't you?
Oh, for sure. So couples that are married, generally, you don't marry somebody like yourself. You marry somebody different. And I see that all the time. There'll be one who's maybe a net spender and one that's a net saver. That happens all the time. That's what we have. But they can be very happily married to each other. You just have to recognize who you are, and then put in place some mechanisms, some ways to trick yourself, and just have awareness. I think the first thing is you just have to be aware. I mean, personally, I love to spend money. I mean, I really do. And you would think that I've always,
yeah, he's an accountant.
Yeah, I had this down since I was 3 years old. I've never had any of these. Well, no, that's wrong. I mean, I have so many different habits and just expenses and fun things that I like to do. That's kind of the way I live. So, I always want to buy new golf clubs or whatever it may be. And so I've had to learn how to kind of trick myself to make sure that I have the money that I need when those emergencies and opportunities arise. And then it just becomes part of my daily life, and then it works out.
Okay, great. So let's in the second half of our conversation, let's put some real substance in this, because we've talked about habits. We've talked about, you've just said there, how people feel like they were lucky or not lucky. So I think what would be really cool would be to, for anyone listening or watching is that we can give them some practical things to take away. Of course, go and get your book is a really good thing to do. And so first of all, people, if we just take this conversation, there's the goals part of it, right? So we're going to get really clear on what kind of money we're going to need for our future, right? So I
think so. Really, the first step is to see where you are right now.
So an audit, you're going to do an audit of your finances. So
yes,
what
do
we do to create that audit?
Well, the book has a couple of worksheets you can use, but it's really pretty simple. I mean, one of them is going to be a cash flow, is what I call it. But, it's really a budget, but people hate that word, so I call it a cash flow.
Yeah, well, I think cash flow is important because cash flow projects into the future as well, commonly.
It does, and that's what I always do. I'm always trying to ask, what do we see coming up, not what happened. It's not so you're right. It's not necessarily an audit. It's just it's a way of just trying to see what the year is going to be like. So how much money are we going to make, and where are we going to spend that money? And when we subtract that out, is it a positive number?
Yeah.
And if it is, then how are we going to allocate that positive number, to forward ourselves in our financial success?
Okay, cool. So we have a cash flow document in Team Superdad. You've
Awesome.
got cash flow documents in the book that people can get as a template in the book. You can also search Google for cash flow template, right?
Absolutely.
If you're making a cash flow, you're putting on there, if you took the year, right, you got Christmas, birthdays, holidays, any kind of occasion where you're going to be spending money. Then you've got your just general expenses. What are you expecting to spend each month? And then on top of that, obviously you've got income. So where's your money coming in across the year, across each month? And so when someone fills that in on an Excel sheet or a Google spreadsheet, they will then see, I have X $1,000 a month. Say as a household, we have $5,000 a month. Great. Our normal expenses are $4,000 a month. Great. So we should have £1,000 a month, left at the end of each month. But Christmas costs $6,000 and summer vacation costs $6,000. So now we're back to zero. And that's the cash flow. That's what people need to get their head around there. Is that there?
Yeah, and those annual numbers. Those annual numbers are really important. Johnny, you nailed it. That's the stuff that usually trips people up. They can usually sit there and balance things month to month if they're just living because they're watching their account and going, oh yeah, I'm doing good. Well then, like you said, vacation holiday comes up, things like that, taxes, whatever it may be. That's what trips them up, are those annual ones. That's why you have to sit down and write it out to really see where you stand.
Yeah. Well, a car. You could say, oh yeah, car costs me $100 a month gas. Okay, but then you hadn't allowed for something goes wrong at least once a year. There's a service. So actually, no, the car doesn't cost that much a month. It costs double that a month. Okay, so that's our practice. We're managing our money there, and then our goals. So in terms of how much money we think we might need in the future, so we're going to put we got our kids' college in there. We've got, I don't know, what if we want to start having a bigger house, or we want to, we're planning for things like that. What do we do there? We go like, okay, well, our 5-year goal is do we paint a picture of our perfect life and then work out what that life would cost? Is that an idea?
You can. We use our financial planning software is pretty robust. So, we'll take all that. We call them cards just because that's what they look like in the financial planning software. So, a client will come in and say, well, we want to buy a vacation home, or we want to relocate to another home, or whatever it may be. That's a card to us. And then we'll go in and we can get all the data on that. And then what happens is the software runs that within the cash flows of all the other things that have to happen. saving for college, saving for retirement, et cetera, and so forth. And then we can read that and we can tell, whether that's feasible or not, or at what level it's feasible and things like that.
Okay. So, an individual dad or a couple planning this together, they could take that card idea, they can even stick it on a wall and go, new house, kids' college, daughter's wedding dress, even though the daughter's 5th, like in my mind, my daughter's 10, right? In my mind, I'm like, somewhere down the line is a bloody 20 grand.
Oh, yes. Yeah, at least. Yeah.
So those cards, you can kind of, especially as a couple, you can play with this and say, all right, well, let's get creative. Let's have a brain. Let's get a bottle of wine and have a laugh about how we're going to plan our future out, and just start to put some numbers on there, and boom, now you've got a wall or a notepad in front of you where you can see the life you want for yourself in 5-10 years time, and some idea of what it's going to cost. Okay, cool.
Yeah. And you verbalize it, which sometimes hard, even with your spouse, sometimes to really verbalize what it is that you want to achieve, because once you say it, it's out there, so it's a great thing for everybody to do, for sure.
Yeah. And that's a coaching exercise. Anyone who's experienced coaching before will know exercises like that. And if you've not experienced coaching before, then that's the kind of stuff that happens when you're working with a coach, is that they'll challenge you to think about new things for yourself and your life that are bigger and greater than what you've got now, because that's the growth, that's the stretch, that's the how do you have a better life, where you plan it and you start to make it happen.
Yeah.
And so then I can imagine a couple at that stage then go, well, that's fun, but how the hell are we going to do that? Like, it's almost like a bit of they feel a bit deflated by that. They're working with you, or they're reading your book. They've got these ideas for things they want to have happen, but now they've got no idea how they're going to make that extra money. What's the next stage in the process?
Well, with us, like in our process as a professional financial planner, I mean, that's where, we start allocating whatever was left at the end of that cash flow statement. Okay. So there's money that's left over. That's what we have to put towards what it is you just verbalized that you want to achieve. And then we have to carefully allocate it towards those things, decide, where it's going to be. Obviously, first, you have to have an emergency fund. You have to have some just plain old cash. Make sure that you can pay for those expenses and so forth that may come up from time to time. And then from there, you're going to allocate it into accounts towards these different goals that you have for yourself. And you're going to run out of, money before you run out of goals, potentially. Okay. And I think that you have to just understand that that's totally okay. Okay. That's going to happen. And that's okay. And it's because this is an ongoing process. For our clients, it's every 6 months. So they're going to come in 6 months, and we're going to reassess. We're going to see where they are, and we're looking for progress as we go. And in between, they're finding ways to solve these different things. And over the course of, maybe even years, some of these things we've tackled and we've handled, and now we can go to the next thing, and well, now maybe that vacation home is a possibility. You've gotten a raise, all these things. See, I think that's really important. Let me backtrack to that. When you all of a sudden get a raise at work, okay, what's the first thing you think of doing with that money?
Spending it. Yeah. Woohoo! Holiday.
If you have a plan, and you have these cards, up on your mirror, the first thing you're going to think of is that vacation house or that relocation. That's the magic of the planning, is that it gets your mind geared up and looking for the opportunities to achieve some of these things when those opportunities arise.
Yeah. And, we've had lots of guests on the podcast about mindset, about affirmations, about the law of attraction. We've had a kind of religious angle on it as well. These things are all sort of the same subject, where attention goes, energy flows. You can't help but focus on something that's important to you or that you've got a plan for. And in the same way, if you're not asking for it, praying for it, focusing on it, believing it, working towards it, it ain't never going to happen.
It's not going to happen. Yeah.
Yeah. And when, well, I lost my train of thought. 1 second. So we've got our plan. We've given them some extra money. Oh yeah. So in terms of, I've read the Philistine prophecy, and obviously it's in the Bible. They talk about tithing and putting a proportion of your money to one side. Oh, I've what's his name? Dave Ramsey.
Yes.
Obviously, for our American friends and anyone involved in money around the world will probably have heard of Dave Ramsey. But his debt, money snowball and the emergency fund. So these are things that people who are focused on their money might have heard about. Is the emergency fund? That's really vital. Is that's everybody should be clear on the importance of having an emergency fund, right?
Yeah, I think that's the very first thing, even before you start trying to knock away the debt, is that you have the emergency fund to make sure it's going to be there, so that when the debt resolves itself, you don't go back in. And then I want to go back, because you're just talking about charitable donations and giving away your money. If that's okay.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah, because I didn't really do a chapter on that in the book, but it's so important. And it's something that I've just seen in working with couples over the years that is just mind-boggling to me. But, without a doubt, the couples I work with that are most financially successful, that doesn't mean they make the most money. It just means that they are achieving their goals and doing a great job, living their financial lives. They're very, very generous people, almost to a T. They're donating, they're contributing to their church or their charity or whatever it may be. And, I think that when you do that, you take a little bit of the control away from money, because money can control you if you let it. It can scare you. It can give you emotions that are negative.
Yeah.
And the best way to take away that control that money has over you is to give it away.
Yeah.
And then if you're able to do that, then you're not worried about it anymore. You're just kind of going, well, we're gonna figure this deal out, and it doesn't have to do with all the dollars and cents. It has totally to do with my attitude. And when you have an attitude of, I've known a lot of people like this, and you have too, that have the attitude always of, well, I deserve it. I deserve a raise, and this, I just got a bad break over here, or whatever it may be. That's a bad attitude. The best attitude is to realize that, to be very grateful for the opportunities that you have, not to be looking at whoever it may be that, is maybe you perceive to be doing a lot better than you, but rather to look at just being in a first world country like we are, Johnny, you and I, and just saying, man, I actually have a positive number, after doing that cash flow thing. And a wide majority of humans on this world absolutely do not have no earthly idea how they're going to feed their family tomorrow.
Yeah, that's such a grounding thought. And I've heard money be spoken about as energy, there, and whether people have come across that too much before, or believe it or don't believe it, but it's a flow. It's coming from over there, it's passing us by, and it's going out the other side. And it's been written about and spoken about in so many different ways. But the more that you stop the flow of that money, just like a dam, it's going to dry up coming to you as well. So it's brilliant to hear someone with such an extensive depth of experience being able to reference that as well, and almost without the technical sides to it. It's an anecdotal. Yeah, people that are generous seem to have a better control over their money, seem to have
they do
more abundance. Yeah,
I can't explain it, because I can look at that cash flow and I can see how much money is being just basically given away.
Yeah.
And half of my brain kind of sits there and goes, wow, we can actually use that.
That doesn't make sense. Stop.
Yeah, we can actually use that to solve some of this. But the reality is, the more they give away, it just seems like the more of that flow. I like that flow concept.
Yeah.
It's just it just works. I can't explain it from a financial standpoint whatsoever. Sorry.
People just have to believe in it. It's like, where do the flowers come from in spring? They're just like, bing,
Money's like that. It does flow, and we get most of the satisfaction we get from money is when we're able to make it do something really amazing. And when you take your money and you give it away someplace where it really can do a lot, that's fantastic. Being parents, same deal. We one of the best financial decisions you could make if you want to be absolutely as rich as you possibly could is just don't have any kids, right? Because they're expensive. But of course, that's absolutely not the point whatsoever.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, finding the joy in spending money and in the little things. So, what about, this is a good way to kind of wrap this up. People who want more money, they've got to make more money. Yeah. So that's I guess the second half of the financial message is, I don't just mean, go and get a different job. The world is full of messages about multiple streams of income and different ways of making money. I believe that that's important, that people start to understand, and whether they do it or not, they at least need to understand, I can and I could and I probably should make money in different ways. Do people ask you that when they come and see you? Do they ask, how can I make more money? What are the different ways I can make more money?
Yeah, sometimes it does come up in different ways. And that's part of the art of financial planning, is trying to determine which part may be the problem. When we don't quite have the biggest number at the bottom that we're looking for, well, do expenses need to get cut? In some cases they do. There's some expenses that need to be dealt with. And on most cases, your expenses are what they are. Most of them are pretty much set at this point. There's not a lot we can do about them. So then you look at the income side. And yeah, we talk about there's here in North Texas, a lot of people own real estate, and we'll do that. That can be an extra income stream, although prices have gotten ridiculously high here recently. But you can do that. You can own residential real estate or commercial real estate. Sometimes it is a second job. Sometimes that's absolutely necessary. Sometimes you're having a discussion of, maybe one spouse is staying home with the kids, and maybe something else has to happen there from an income standpoint. But most of the time when it comes up and it's an issue, it's usually when some type of transition has occurred. Okay, and that's like a divorce, or the death of one spouse or the other. Some type of transition is where it gets hard, because you're sitting there going, okay, I have this lifestyle, I have this way, and these other things are important that you talk about so much, taking care of our kids and so forth and so on. But I'm going to have to go get like a job that is going to take up a lot of my time, in order to make all this work. And since in my experience, sometimes those are absolutely the hardest conversations to have, is, when you're going to have to go work harder, and make more income, and therefore maybe have to give up some of your free time for your family or something like that. Yeah.
It's a lifestyle choice, or lifestyle versus sacrifice. There's a whole lot of other stuff there going on.
And there's not a right or wrong. Well, there is, from a financial standpoint. Sometimes, you really do have to go just do what you have to do. Okay. And understand that. And that can be really hard.
But people that are really growing their money, compound leverage. They're saving, they're investing. The $1,000 that they put out is coming back as $1,500 on a regular basis. Like, these are people you must be working with, some people who have, they're leveraging their lifestyle in a way that's really creating more. I guess it's like ramping up, like the
compounding. Yeah, time value of money.
So what are some of the ways that people, I guess these are people who you've been working with a while. What are some of the ways that people would be doing that? Is it investing? Is it even if they're not managing the properties they're buying, are they investing in a property fund or what? This is the question. How are people leveraging their finances to really increase the amount of wealth they're creating? What are some of the ways people can do that?
Well, leveraging means using debt somehow, and that's usually done here. At least that's usually done with some type of property type deal, and you can do that. I'm more of a stock and bond kind of guy, so okay. So usually what it means is you're not necessarily leveraging with debt, but what you're doing is you got to start somewhere. And you start getting that money set aside and invested, and you let it stay there instead of using the proceeds off of it, so that that money, in essence, can make money on the money that it's making, and so forth and so on. That's that ramp up, that time value of money, that compounding concept that's critical for your long-term goals. Yeah. You have to have that, and you don't see it for many, many years. It's kind of one of those things that you've got to have some faith, probably until it gets to be a decent amount of money that you're doing the right thing, because you're not going to see it, because compounding, works incrementally at the beginning, very, very slowly, and then the curve steepens. It starts just going straight up. But to get to that point, you had to start somewhere.
Yeah, and Darren Hardy's book Compound Leverage is a great book on that. I dare say there's reference to it in your book, I'm sure. But this is people can do that really easily now, can't they? I know in the States the popular one is called Robinhood. Mm-hmm. Here in the UK there's something called Moneybox, and that's literally small amounts of money on a weekly, monthly, whatever basis going into an account. And then it's being put towards the purchase of, small percentages of stocks and shares on the stock market. Yeah,
that's exactly right. And you just want to take the long play, and make sure that you're diversifying and that you're just kind of allocating it. Investing, in my opinion, the right way is just incredibly boring, because you're not buying cannabis stocks or anything like that. I mean, you're literally just allocating it in the stock market in different parts of it, and over time, that's going to grow faster than inflation. That's all you really have to do. You just have to beat inflation by a little bit and keep putting that money there and not touch it, and it becomes significant.
And it's not complicated, is it? Really, Rob? It's you can explain it, but the point I want to make about it is, if someone watches 8 hours a month of reality TV, or watches 10 hours a month of football, or there's things that we do that use up time, and they are enjoyable. I'm not saying we should all stop them, but to start to get a little bit of an idea of what investing actually means, and what would happen if I could put $100 a month into a stocks and shares ISA, or as we call them here, or stocks and shares bond over there. Just a little bit of an understanding of what that's doing for you and how it works is a skill for life. It's knowledge for life, right?
It is. And there's a whole chapter in the book where I tell the story of my dad teaching me about time value of money when I was 10 years old. And it's my favorite story in the book. There are a bunch of them, but it's my favorite one. It really happened. I remember it. I was 10 years old. I remember every bit of it, and that's how I explain it in the book. Is just as if you're a 10-year-old. Sorry, but that's what seems to work. And that's what worked for me. And, not only should we read all this and understand ourselves, I think that it's on us to teach our kids as well, for sure. Because otherwise they won't learn it. I don't think they teach it in school effectively.
No, and it doesn't look like they're about to start anytime soon either, which is just
no.
So listen, just as we come to the end, now summarize the book for us. I don't mean to summarize it word by word, but who's it for? What can people get out of reading your book? Because I think it's a really vital book that a couple should get.
Yeah. Well, it's designed for a pretty broad crowd. Like you said, Johnny, you should be able to read it very easily, even if you're really not into finances at all. And so it doesn't matter. I've had a lot of people that are really into finances and they enjoyed it. They enjoyed the stories and enjoyed having those tools to be able to, for instance, teach their kids about finances. I've had some young people, just kind of starting out. You maybe have kids and they're in that chaotic stage, as I like to call it and remember it. when you're just like, you don't know which way's up.
Yes,
yeah.
Eyes are just open.
I think I wrote the book for them. I really do. I think that I was thinking of myself back then while I was writing it. I think that's really a really good read if you're in that stage, and I think it'll just take a whole load off your shoulders, and you'll be able to understand that you're normal and that this is achievable and that sort of thing. So some young people have really said that it's changed their lives, that's what you want to hear as an author. So
yeah, of course. Yeah. And for a couple experiencing stress around finances, this book, and any book that falls into the same sort of category, get wise. Don't sacrifice your relationship over something as silly as money. Just fill up the knowledge that you're missing and allow it to be a strength in your relationship.
Yeah.
Awesome. And of course it's available at Amazon. Anywhere else? Is it just search the internet, I guess, or it's there's a massive picture of it on the front of your website, isn't there? So
yeah, you can get it off my website, schultzwealth.com, or Amazon, or all those places where they sell books. Of course, who buys anything from anywhere but Amazon at this point? I mean, it's just give up, right?
Literally. And I do try to buy from elsewhere, and it goes wrong, and you're just like, oh man, and you flipping click, and it arrives 8 hours later, and you go,
yeah, they own us, it's just what it is.
We'll be devastated when there's no other shops left, but until that time, it's kind of fun. Yeah, our kids can pick up the pieces.
Yeah.
Rob, it's been absolutely brilliant having you on the Team Superdad podcast. We'll talk more, and if the Team Superdad guys would like a live session, maybe a Q&A or something, then it'd be great if you're up for that.
Yeah, no, that'd be great. That'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah, brilliant. Schultzwealth.com. Rob, it's been a real pleasure. Enjoy the rest of your day with your family.
All right, thanks, Johnny.
Yeah.
This has been Team Superdad. Find us at teamsuperdad.com. Join the program and create the best life ever for you and your children. You are not alone. You're on Team Superdad.